What does it mean to be holy? What images come to mind when people say someone or something is holy? A shaman? A Catholic priest? The Virgin Mary? Jesus? Someone whose head glows with a halo? Can anyone really ever live a holy life? Can we really live up to the Torah's standard of righteousness? Isn't that why we have a conflict between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law? What's the truth in all this? Hang on tight, because we'll be hitting all these topics fast and hard in this 5-Minute Torah. Shalom, I'm Darren with Emet HaTorah, where we connect disciples of Yeshua with the eternal Torah of God. If you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you won't miss any important content. In this video, I'm going to highlight 3 things you need to know about this week's Torah portion of Kedoshim, which is Leviticus 19:1 through 20:27. Then I'll go into the commentary from 5-Minute Torah, Volume 3. Also, you'll find links to everything I talk about in the description box below. Stick around until the end of this video, because I'm going to tell you how you can pick up a free resource. It's an ebook called The Spirit of the Law, and it contains over 30 pages dealing with this specific topic. What does it mean to live by the spirit of the law instead of the letter of the law? Here are the 3 things you need to know about this week's Torah Portion Kedoshim. Number 1. Yeshua said loving your neighbor is the second greatest commandment in the Torah. It's found in this week's Torah portion of Kedoshim. It is Leviticus 19:18. Love your neighbor as yourself. Number 2, Kedoshim contains the only commandment that has retroactive consequences if not fulfilled properly. In other words, if you have offered a sacrifice and not eaten it within a specified time period, the intention you had at the beginning is nullified. Retroactive consequences. Number 3, Kedoshim contains Israel's responsibility to be holy, to be distinct from the nations that surround them. This week's 5-Minute Torah commentary is called The Spirit of the Law, and it's brought to you by 5-Minute Torah, Volume 3. Parashat Kedoshim is primarily focused on practical, ethical laws that will set Israel apart from her surrounding nations. It begins with the directive, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." This is Leviticus 19 and verse 2. But when Hashem gives this instruction, he tells Moses to speak, quote, to all of the congregation of the people of Israel. The way Hashem addresses the children of Israel is unique to this event. Let's take a look at why this is the case. So far in the book of Leviticus, most of the instructions have been given to Aaron and his sons, and then to the priesthood in general. In the previous portion, the Lord expands his instructions from the priesthood to the nation as a whole by saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons and to all the people of Israel." This is Leviticus 17 and verse 2. Now he specifies that these instructions are to be heard by all the congregation of the people of Israel. In other words, whereas the previous instructions to the children of Israel could be relayed to anyone not present during Moses' teaching, this time he wants every individual to be present, hence the congregation, so that they can hear these important mitzvot. What's so important about these commandments? Hasn't the Torah given some very important ones already? Evidently, the mitzvot contained in this section of the Torah have some critical bearing on both the nation and the individual. They include things like taking care of the poor, honest business dealings, impartiality in court, not bearing grudges, honoring parents and elders, and not giving in to temptation to look and act like the people around them. This is a short list of things intended to make Israel stand out as a holy nation consecrated to the Lord. But there's a problem in trying to establish parameters of holiness. In his long commentary on this verse, Nachmanides, or the Ramban, makes the famous comment that it is possible to be, quote, disgusting with the permission of the Torah. What does he mean by this? He's saying that one may follow the most literal instructions of the Torah and still be a despicable human being. How is this possible? Because the Torah can only give general boundaries for things such as integrity, fairness, kindness, respect, and wholesome speech. It simply doesn't have the ability to legislate character. This is why the Mishnah and the Talmud work to define what it means to be respectful, honest, equitable, etc. Still though, someone will always find a legal loophole to be a foul human being. We can see this today even among the disciples of Yeshua. Even though the apostolic scriptures are heavy on ethical teachings and emphasize the importance of proper character, some people still claim to be disciples of Yeshua, but find ways to skirt around these restrictions. This is why Paul says the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. He prefaces this statement by saying that as disciples of Yeshua, we are ministers of a new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. Paul makes this statement as an allusion to the new covenant passage in the book of Jeremiah. The Lord used the prophet Jeremiah to tell us what it will be like when the new covenant is fully in effect. For this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall each one teach his neighbor and each his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares the Lord. That's Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 33 and 34. Although Yeshua inaugurated the new covenant, we are still waiting for its fullness. Paul wanted to communicate to his readers that they should be evidence of this reality. The evidence of the new covenant is a new heart that bends its will to the divine will. Being within the technical boundaries of the Torah, God's will on earth, doesn't necessarily mean that one's heart is in the right place. It just means that I'm doing what's expected of me, nothing more. And although there's merit in adhering to the strict letter, in other words, the halakhic boundaries of the Torah, there's much more when we go above what the Torah requires. We have to live our lives according to the spirit of the law. What does this mean? It means approaching the Torah as Yeshua taught us. The letter of the law says don't commit adultery. The spirit of the law says don't have wandering eyes and lustful thoughts. The letter of the law says don't murder. The spirit of the law says don't nurse anger. The letter of the law says that when someone does wrong against you or your property, you have the right to file civil action against them for damages. The spirit of the law says forgive them and leave it up to them to make things right. Disciples of Yeshua are called to live this standard of holiness, just as Peter, quoting our current Torah portion, tells us, As he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. As it is written, you should be holy, for I am holy. This is found in 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 15 and 16. Living by the letter of the Torah is the minimum, but disciples of Yeshua should go beyond the letter and live by the spirit of the Torah, infusing this world with godliness so that the world may see our good deeds and glorify our Father in heaven. Please do us a favor by subscribing to our channel, turning on notifications, liking this video, and sharing it with your friends and family. We want to be able to expand our reach, and once we hit that 1,000 subscriber magic mark, we'll be able to be visible, much more visible, in the YouTube algorithms. So please help us by doing this. And as always, if you missed last week's video, all you have to do is click on the video link right here and enjoy the content. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. Shavua Tov.